It's now been over a year since Game of Thrones came to what most consider a disappointing ending. Despite this, the book series that it was based on by George R.R. Martin, A Song of Ice and Fire, isn't finished yet. Books 6 and 7 haven't been released. With the wait for the books being so long, some fans are growing frustrated. Others have reached a point of apathy where they just don't care if the book comes out ever. Some have accepted that it will never be released. And the fourth kind, which I count myself as one, are just happy to wait. Around the time of Game of Thrones Season 8 being released and it receiving poor reviews from fans and critics alike, many discussions started sprouting up in forums. Was George R.R. Martin's ending going to be the same? Did the showrunners D&D just make up what they wanted to? I mean, obviously they did in some regards, but did they, even though it was very disappointing, actually hit on George's story points? Bearing all of this in mind, I'm going to look at in this video a possible reason why George hasn't finished the books yet. Now, I'll be the first to admit, the reason probably is that he's a slow writer, and that's it. But let's have a bit of fun and have a look at why else it might be. Before we do that, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want to see more TV and film analysis from me, Anthony James. I'm guaranteed to release at least one video a week on a Thursday. I also have my podcast every week on a Monday with Konrad, my friend. He watches the show Dark, and he's never seen it before, so we're going through it episode by episode, hearing his theories and his feelings. It's really funny, you should check it out. As well as that, in the next few weeks, I'm going to be starting a live show once a week called The Anthony James Show, where I go through reviews and news around TV and film. Subscribe if you're interested in something like that when it comes out. Alright, so let's get back into it. George R.R. Martin has been quoted as saying in the past that he used to look on forums, back in the late 90s, and he couldn't believe how quickly some of the fans were cottoning on to his ideas. So he decided to stop looking at the forums in general, because he was afraid that he would decide to change it because people had figured it out. Now, because the TV show has been so successful and has a worldwide reach, he cannot avoid getting all the information about how people are perceiving the show. He can't avoid it. So this time, he can't actively switch off and think, well, I'm not going to listen to the fans, because you know what? They're everywhere. He's too famous now. So it is my belief that like back then, 20 years ago, when George decided to stop looking at the forums because he didn't want to be influenced by people's thoughts, George probably is trying his best not to change his story, even though a lot of the aspects of the ending didn't hit home with the fans. They were disappointed by it. Now, maybe that was in the delivery, maybe that was in characters not being built up enough, maybe that was in the fact that big moments that should have been given to particular characters to finish their story arc were just randomly given to other characters. Despite all that, I think that George R.R. Martin probably tried to ignore the fans. And he probably said, well, I need to keep it the same because it's my story and that's the story I'm telling. People can either like it or loathe it. Now, I think George wanted to do that. However, as the show got so huge and so big, it got to the point, in my opinion, now again, let's just say he is a slow writer. Like, before I say this, he is a slow writer. But I have to say this. Think about it. You'd be an absolute idiot if you had the biggest TV show based on your work that was about to finish in 2 or 3 years and you didn't wait to see how it was perceived. Now, let's say that before season 6 or before season 7 of Game of Thrones came out, George R.R. Martin worked really fast and really hard to try and get book 6 done. He gets book 6 done, it comes out, everyone loves it, and then season 8 of Game of Thrones comes out, and it is just as disappointing. They finish it in just the same way, and a lot of the points, like Bran being the king, Daenerys burning the city, which I don't know if it's going to happen in the book, but say if it does, those plot points that are the same as the end of George's book, or could be, he would then be really, really hard-pressed not to change them, because he knows people were disappointed by them. And I think he would be smart enough to know that there'd be a large amount of the audience who are going to read his book, that if it's the same ending or the same ending to a particular storyline, there's going to be people who judge his book unfairly because of that. They're going to judge his book because of their memory of what happened in the show. And unfortunately, that's just a hard truth. That is going to happen. Some people are going to judge George's books incorrectly and not give them a fair chance because of the disappointing ending of the show. So if I was George R.R. Martin, I'd be sitting there at around season 6, season 5, You already know that the show has started to deviate from a lot of your things, which George has talked about a lot in the past. They're deviating from small details, which really, they're adding up and adding up and adding up, and they're going to be huge problems later on. Well, we saw those huge problems. He was right. So you must be sitting there. If I was George sitting there around season 5, season 6, I'd be thinking to myself, yeah, I should be writing book 6, but you know what? I don't really feel like, I think it'll be a waste of time, because if I write that book and release that book, and then the TV show doesn't deliver, and they hate it and they're disappointed by it, by those plot points, the same plot points that are in my final book, I'd be thinking to myself, well, I'm just going to wait and see. Because if I had written that 6th book, then I've only got one book to fix it. Or one book, like, he could still stick to the same plot points, but he might feel then, oh, I have to put in more build-up, I have to make sure that that's an earned ending. So when Daenerys burns the city, if that is going to happen in the book, he would think to himself, right, have I actually earned that with Daenerys? And he would have 2 books, if he waited and stopped writing, he would have 2 books to build to those endings, knowing where it was disappointing in the show. So I think, and obviously this will never be admitted to, because how can George admit to that? He can't come out and just say, yeah, I've just purposely not been writing the books, or purposely not been finishing the books, because I probably would have to go back and change an awful lot because you didn't like this and this and this. You'd have to be really stupid not to take into account that you're going to get millions, if not a billion people reacting to your show, which is going to then inform how you write that last book. Because he wasn't going to get the 7th book done in time. And you know that you would rather have 2 books worth to earn the ending and bring your fans in and hopefully that they love it. You'd rather have that time to do it. If you didn't have that time to do it, if you only had the 1 book, well, then you run the risk of everyone thinking that you rushed the ending, just like the TV show did, that you made a U-turn at the last minute. I really think that this plays a part. And maybe it's subconscious on George's part. Maybe it's subconscious. Maybe he's sitting there thinking to himself, I really want to write this book. He's been trying all these years. But there's actually that little block in the back of his head that says, I need to see what people think of it first. You know? He has the biggest audience ever for his ideas to be put through like the mill. And the ones that don't work, maybe he would agree with why they don't work. Or maybe he thinks, all right, so the show got that wrong because they didn't build that, they rushed that, and he can do something better than that. Rather than having a 1,500-page book that he has to go and write again because he agrees with the disappointment of the show and he wants to fix it. That would be really, really disheartening as an author, and he probably wanted to avoid that. Now, I will admit, I've only read the books once, and it's been a few years since I finished them. However, I will say that I know that there are some things that happen in the books that don't happen in the show, and vice versa. So I know that the Night King in the show isn't where you kill him and all the rest of the others die. Or the White Walkers, I should say. I don't really know if there's an equivalent in the books. I know there's the Great Other, but I'm not sure it's ever explicitly mentioned that if you kill the Great Other, all of the White Walkers die. And I actually can't even remember whether the Great Other is a historical figure or he's currently there. So that Night King character seems to be show only, which means the idea of Arya killing the Night King instead of Jon Snow isn't really going to be a problem in the book, because the way that the White Walker characters come to an end is probably going to be different. Even saying that, Jon Snow in the books is still dead, apparently. So we don't even know if George R. R. Martin's going to bring him back. Maybe he decided not to bring him back. I mean, I know we all assume he's going to come back. But maybe George R. R. Martin isn't going to bring him back, and that's one of the huge deviations that they did, because he wanted to kill him, but the TV show was like, no, we've had enough of your killing. We need to actually have him alive. We want our main star alive. I could see that being true. Having said that, I think we're all expecting Jon Snow to be back. Stuff like the Daenerys going mad. There has been leaked scripts now which show maybe even the actors were given a script where Daenerys didn't actually burn the city, and it was actually wildfire that did it. And then they changed their mind later on, the creators of the show. So even Emilia Clarke, who was playing Daenerys, didn't even know until after they'd shot it that it actually, well, until maybe she was shooting it, because she did have to start acting crazy. But even in the initial scripts, it wasn't Daenerys flipping. So it seems that the creators of the show actually mirrored Daenerys in the show, as in they just switched their idea last minute. So I can see where people are coming from when they talk about the book and Daenerys has something within her to become the dragon, like and sort of go a bit unhinged. I see that, but I don't. I think a lot of the work, if that was gonna happen, I think a lot of the work that is gonna go into that would happen in book 6 and then also book 7. I don't know of the whole Nazi element of Daenerys, where she sort of takes over and then she's like, you know, basically a Nazi-ish figure. I don't know if that's going to be the book, but anyway, this isn't a video where I'm going to go through all the things I'm going to think about in the book. Konrad and I on our After Dark podcast are going to do an episode of Game of Thrones soon, so subscribe for that. But yeah, I think maybe George R. R. Martin is secretly been waiting for the end of the show to finish his books. What do you guys think? I think you'd be stupid not to be honest with you. You got 500 million people or whatever watching your show. They'll tell you if they think it's bad or good. So why wouldn't you wait to get that audience feedback? Maybe you're a purist and you think, well, it's George's book. He wouldn't do that. He wants to write his story. He's just a slow writer. Yeah, I probably agree with that. But I thought this was an interesting idea to have. And the thing is, we'll never know the answer. George is never going to come out and say, well, I just took a year off. He's never going to come out and say that. Alright, make sure you subscribe if you liked the video. If you want to hear more TV and film analysis from me, Anthony James, I release a video every Thursday, and the podcast every Monday, in which my friend Konrad goes through Dark, one episode at a time. His theories are hilarious, they're great, he actually is getting a lot more right than he thinks he is. And until the next time, see you later, thanks for watching.